Hello, Vikram. Nicholas here with the IAM. How
Hey,
are you today?
Nicholas. Finally connected. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And thank you very much for taking the time to speak to us today. I'm really looking forward to learning as much as possible from
Yeah,
your expertise. There's a lot to cover, so let us jump right in.
I want to preface it by these opinions are my own opinions based on
Mhm,
my own career
mhm,
expectations and my career trajectory. They don't reflect
mhm,
the opinions of my company at this point. Okay. Just
mhm,
wanted to
mhm.
get that out there from a legal perspective. And then fire away, Nicholas. Nice to meet you.
Excellent. Thank you very much for pointing that out, Vikram. So the first thing that I would like to say is that you have been described by your colleagues as a committed IT professional, strong leader, great manager. Um, but I also know that most importantly, recently, you were also crowned an Identity Ninja. So congratulations on your achievement, first
Thank
of
you
all.
so much.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, man. That's a really awesome question. But one, I'm happy to get the Identity Ninja. I think having that ninja title is it's not just a title. For me, it's sort of a reflection of my hard work.
Mhm,
The hard work of numerous leaders that have got me to this point. Their
mhm,
coaching, their mentorship,
mhm,
and
mhm,
and just the opportunities to work in just great international companies that are on the cutting edge of technology. And then so I'm really blessed, to have that opportunity and to be able to actually dive in and be
mhm,
certified and just get to learn and grow. Personally, I'm at a point in my career where I've 27 years in IT and cybersecurity. I
mhm,
started off traditionally as a business analyst, in a
mhm,
large Fortune company, and my LinkedIn profile is fairly open, so you know the companies I worked at. So
mhm,
I wouldn't name the companies really, but
mhm, mhm.
just to keep the brand names out. Um, I'm a mechanical engineer. I'm an industrial engineer. I'm basically have a solid engineering background, and I wanted to sort of find a path. Not necessarily in information technology and information security. I
Mhm,
had no idea I was going to get into this area, but
mhm, mhm,
find a harmony. So anyway, so I started out my career as a business analyst, uh,
mhm,
testing software for
mhm.
high visibility revenue applications within the transportation freight, logistics, supply chain, those areas. Very demanding areas, always in the cutting edge of business operations, serving customers. And my role really was making sure all of the applications and products and services are tested
Mhm,
correctly. So we were
mhm,
responsible, or I was responsible for doing quality assurance like integration testing, end-to-end testing, full cycle revenue testing, user acceptance testing for all of the key products and features.
wow.
So, really involved in developing test scripts, test plans, working with application development. So, you really
Mhm,
kind of, I really kind of work with that. That's when I built my relationship within information technology, within application development, building those relationships and really
interesting.
understanding end to end, what is that,
Mhm.
what does the product look like and touching different operating processes and systems and applications. So, but
Okay.
I that's just a little bit about myself, and we can dive into other areas. But that was
And yeah,
that
I was
yeah,
just wondering if you could also spend a couple of minutes to tell us how you moved up the ladder. So, how
yeah,
did you transition from business analyst and mechanical engineer to management?
sure. That's awesome. So one of the things that I always focused on was in my current role. So I was a business analyst.
Mhm,
I went into a senior business analyst role, and what I actually landed up doing was just
mhm,
finding new projects, new opportunities, leading the path,
mhm,
executing, managing, leading teams. At the individual contributor level, I was always a part of teams, but I always took on roles at the team lead level or the project lead
mhm,
level, and
mhm, mhm.
always sort of hands-on contributed to the team goals, expectations, and I constantly sort of worked well with teams. I think that's been one of my key sort of areas of
Mhm.
expertise is really working well with teams, being friendly, being collaborative, being helping, being a coach where I need to. And those skills really paid up, as I started moving up. I got
Hmm.
opportunities to really demonstrate, multiple teams. So it's not just one team, leading
Hmm.
multiple teams, because I worked at large companies, right? So the
So
opportunity,
essentially, you were taking ownership of one project after the other, and before you knew it, you advanced to more senior roles at the project management level and higher.
right, exactly. And I
Mhm.
found myself into this role that I really, really enjoyed for a couple of years, in the same company where I started my career.
Mhm.
It was called Test and Quality Assurance Lead, TQAD.
Mhm.
And that lead was a very key role, meaning I was responsible and accountable for everything to do with quality assurance for a given product or a project.
Mhm.
And it touched multiple operating systems, multiple
Mhm. Mhm.
teams, multiple functions. So
Mhm.
me and my teams were responsible for making sure all of quality assurance for that product
Mhm.
is integrated, is user acceptance tested, before marketing and sales and go live actually,
Mhm.
moves that product into production. So that was a really key
Mm.
role where I
Interesting.
really got to interface with sales, marketing, ops, all different functions, in a
Interesting.
given project. So that really
Wow.
sort of took me. Yeah, it was a phenomenal role. When I go back, I think that was really a pivot, in my career. And
Mm-hmm.
then from that role, I actually got put
Mm-hmm.
into a very specialized role within the company for a year. It
Mm-hmm.
was a special project where a handpicked set of employees became a core team of like five or six amongst a big team of 15, where we had teams from sales, marketing, ops, and we were trying to research and figure out
Mm.
what would be the next gen of product development, product management, product operations, for our customers. I got selected by
Interesting.
senior VPs in the company, and I'm super fortunate because that was a role that I basically got out of my
Mm.
traditional job, my day to day,
Mm-hmm.
and my
Mm-hmm.
managers and VPs freed me up for a year to be a part of this team, which is just awesome.
Wow.
And I got to spend a year with this team, doing demos, doing products, writing
Mm-hmm.
requirements, and really being on the cutting edge of innovation.
Mm.
Now, a year later, we decided to can the project, Nicholas, meaning we did
Mm.
our research, we did all of the studies, and I even
Mm-hmm.
wrote a research paper with the University of Memphis, things like that, right? But then later on, senior leaders made the decision that it was probably not a good fit for the company. It was probably too expensive,
Okay.
and then that's okay, right?
Interesting.
So the learning was phenomenal.
Wow.
Yeah, the learning was
I,
just
I, I bet it must have been a big learning curve, yes. And moving on to your current role, Vikram, as the VP of a global security program, would you be able to tell us what strategic priorities guide your approach to identity today?
yeah. So a key strategic priority right now, Nicholas, is really staying on top of SOC 2 Type 2 compliance. So I'm leading our SOC 2 Type 2 compliance program as part of an enterprise risk management. And
Mm-hmm.
we just got SOC 2 Type 1 certified that I led the company through, which is great. We got certified in
Mm-hmm.
June of this year, and we are well on the way. Things are looking really good to be SOC 2 Type 2 certified in March of 2026. So we are
Mm-hmm.
actively sort of now deploying controls, validating our controls. We've got an external
Mm-hmm.
partner that we're working with to hold us accountable to our
Mm-hmm.
controls. So they're spot checking our evidence. So it's not just our point of view, we're also giving
Yes.
an external point of view. As you know, in the SOC 2 space, it's driven by AICPA, American Institute of Certified Professional Accountants, and it's a
Mm-hmm.
very sort of top layer of compliance and controls because we're an advisory firm, Nicholas, so we provide cutting edge products and services,
Mm-hmm.
M&A, intellectual capital, strategy,
I
benchmarking,
bet,
contract.
yes.
So we have clients, and clients
Mm-hmm.
do due diligence on us, and always
Mm-hmm.
questions get asked about. Talk to us about your cybersecurity program. Talk to us about your vulnerability management controls. Talk to us about your pen testing.
Yes.
Talk to us about your controls. Talk to us about how you're maintaining your enterprise risk management controls. So I'm in the middle of that. So my clients and that work define my strategic priority, but operationally, making sure we have a good strategy, a good program, good policies, good controls, good governance,
Mm-hmm.
making sure we're SOC 2 Type 2 certified, and we are compliant to GLBA,
Yeah.
NCUA, Grand Reach Bliley Act,
Mm-hmm.
National Credit Union Administration. because our niche, and I'm super fortunate to be in that niche, is community banks, credit unions. So we provide products and services to that. So my cybersecurity strategic priorities are everything that I talked about, but a key priority, a big one, is to jump on calls with clients. It could be you, to really answer questions about security strategy, security program control. So we provide a lot of documentation, but we also don't provide everything, right? Because we're a private company, we don't need to share a lot of stuff because that is company intellectual property. So what I do is I get on a call with a client and say, whatever questions you have, I can bring it up on a call. I can showcase the policies. I can walk you through my pen test report and build that additional level of trust. And I do that.
Yes.
Oh, has been so amazing, Nicholas, because I get to really interact not just within the company, but I also get to interact directly with my clients when need be to get on
Yes.
calls
Yeah.
and build that trust. I don't sell. I don't develop selling. I don't develop selling. That I've got my sales and business leaders doing that work for us. I get brought in to enable that additional level of trust. And I have
Yes,
to know
definitely.
everything about cyber, not just 50,000 feet, but going down
Yeah.
50,000 feet. And IAM, Nicholas, which is where we
Yeah.
connected, is a really big part of that control ecosystem.
Yeah, and I bet someone in your position must have a very broad range of knowledge across pretty much every cybersecurity domain. And I do understand that compliance is also a big driver behind many of the strategic priorities that you lay out. Which also leads me to the next question. If you had to name the biggest headaches or challenges in IAM that keep you up at night, what would they be? I guess compliance would be one of them to
Yeah,
make sure that you're always compliant with all the
absolutely. So I think
regulatory frameworks in the pipeline.
100%. I think you nailed it. Compliance is always there. So I'll keep that
Yeah,
out. Not that I'm ignoring compliance, but I think the
yeah,
key thing is the definition of identity and scope. So, identity is now evolved, right? Identity is not just human. Now we've got machine identities with artificial intelligence, robotics process automation. And as we are thinking about building new capabilities and
mhm,
services in agentic AI, and things like that, and when we develop agents, I gotta make sure those agents are monitored. We are ingesting the right data. They're monitoring for data privacy, data protection, PII, PCI, the prompts that we're going to be putting in, the quality of data. So identity has really grown, Nicholas, from human identities to machine identities. And machine identities
yes,
have evolved. I mean, they have been in place for many, many years. But now that we've added more identities when it comes to AI, and as you know, with AI, with all the big tech companies now, there's going to be like a physical AI device, like your cell phone, like your Apple cell phone, that probably is going to come out in the next couple of years. There's probably going to be AI devices like Meta's already got their glasses. So like, it's crazy how identity and access is going to have to
yes,
include all of that. So that to me is
yeah,
going to become pivotal for me, because we've got a really good, we're in the cloud, so we've got a good structure and identity. I'm not concerned about that.
yes.
So all that's well managed, well protected. It's audited, it's reported, and we're SOC 2 in that SOC 2 space now.
Another thing that I wanted to ask you about is that I understand that disaster recovery is one of the areas you specialize in.
Hmm.
And so I wanted to ask you, where do you see IAM intersecting most critically with disaster recovery and business continuity? Or in other words, how does IAM play a critical role in disaster recovery and business continuity planning?
What a fabulous question, Nicholas. Oh my gosh. IAM is a core tenet of a disaster
Mhm,
recovery strategy. So as disaster recovery, I got exposed like almost 15 years ago. But getting down
mhm,
into the specifics, DR really
mhm,
covers the infrastructure, the business
mhm,
applications, and IAM fits directly into DR because if I'm recovering a business application, I got to make sure
mhm,
if I'm a user that's going to be using that application, whatever the application is, if it's SAP HR or finance or
mhm,
Oracle or whatever the application is, I got to make sure my users can log in and actually do all of the business processes they were actually asked to do. So the
mhm,
fundamental item is identity and access. You got to make sure those IAM services are up and running, right? So whatever IAM solution, if it's home build, if it's Oracle Identity and Access Manager, or if it's SailPoint, or Savient, or or whatever one login, paying identity. You got to make sure those services are up and running. So from a DR perspective, you got to make sure they are part of your tier one strategy, right? Because your network is your fundamental tier zero. Networking is like fundamental. Then comes your database, your application, and then your information security layer, your your all of those variables, right? Your firewalls have to be in place. And then the first thing when I was exposed to DR and BC is that when we did bring up applications, we usually interface with the IAM team to make sure they are actually checking out their IAM services. And also in DR, because it's a separate environment, you got to make sure those users are set up for DR so they can log into those applications, because DR is a separate environment from production, is where we normally test it. So all of those users, so we have to set up a DR instance for IAM. So IAM is so fundamental. Without IAM, you can't really validate anything. You have
I
fundamentally.
totally agree.
Yeah, you got to
I
log in.
totally agree.
Yeah, and if you can't log in, and if your IAM services aren't up and running, your host, you can't do anything.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
is super, super critical. And I got to know more about it because when I was in another Fortune company, I managed disaster recovery testing, and IAM teams had to, like, fundamentally, I managed the project plan and the implementation plan. We had IAM teams like pre-position accounts, set up accounts, and make sure they're all up and running, right? We called it fire because we were a big SAP supply chain. So we called it SAP firefighter IDs. And we set those accounts up. And that's your fundamental IAM sort of layer where, all the DR analysts are coming in, our business users are coming in, and then they normally log in with their credentials. We gave them credentials. So IAM, oh my gosh, is like super critical, fundamental to the recovery of an application.
I totally agree. I couldn't agree more. In your point of view, what is the biggest identity-related risk organizations underestimate today? I think I know what you will probably say, but I want to hear your opinion.
Wow. I mean, it's really, the trust of an identity is super critical. Today, hijackers are taking credentials, and credential hijacking is super critical. So I think a lot of organizations get bogged down with, oh yeah, I got an IAM solution, I've got a PAM, I got SailPoint, I got Savient, I got all these awesome solutions. But I think credential hijacking is super critical. So having good blocking, tackling, monitoring tools in the identity space is very, very critical. And making sure we're reviewing identity logs on an ongoing basis and validating. That's one piece of it. A second piece of it, a lot of organizations don't have privileged access management still in place. Organizations I went into, they were starting to build PAM, and PAM's now become pretty critical, especially if you're developing products and services. And developer credentials, root credentials have gotten compromised over many years. I've seen a lot of data breaches. And organizations really don't put a lot of emphasis on developer credentials because they feel like, if I've given you, Nicholas, dev credentials and root credentials, not everybody needs to have access to it. Maybe one or two individuals. And we're going to track and manage those privileged credentials, the checking in and checking out. What if, not saying you will, but there's always a what if. Someone went rogue, someone compromised, someone took a database credentials and hacked the entire database. I've seen that happen a lot, right? And so that's why PAM came into being. And I think that's where, so, it's sort of caught up, right? Identity and access fraud really caught up to us with developer credentials getting breached, root credentials getting breached, and not from insider threat, it's also outsider threat. So it's obvious insider threat, but it's also outsider threat. Actually, what was happening is we were getting a lot of outsider threat, and people literally lost focus on insider threat. When insider threat started happening, oh my God, PAM came into being.
Like disgruntled employees.
Exactly, disgruntled employees. And another big piece that I always make sure I'm talking to my HR teams and infrastructure teams is onboarding, offboarding, and making sure when employees leave the company or get promoted up, that managers are making sure that those identities are provisioned correctly. So going back to segregation of duty, least privilege, you got to make sure that individual is only given access to that specific team for that specific application. So if Vikram guys had access to like 5 applications and he doesn't need access in the new role, my access needs to get cut off right away, right? I don't need to be having access. So managers make a lot of mistakes. They keep that access for, I don't know, whatever reason. They feel like,
Yeah.
the person should have access, maybe 30. So they get really comfortable and they forget about it. So not everybody, and when you get comfortable, you forget about it because life's busy and you're doing 500 other things. So that piece is very critical, is
Yes.
entitlements and provisions. And I've seen a lot of mistakes, even in my own organization. I have to chase people down because I've got distribution lists that have people that have left the companies. I'm like, no, you got to delete it right away. So, it's like you
Yep.
got to, it feels simple. It feels like and we always ignore the simple. And I feel that's
Yes.
where we
Yeah.
get bombed. You know, um, I go back to my CEO from a previous company. He said, you got to be brilliant at the basics. And I was thinking through a
Yes.
lot, even for this interview and even in my daily role.
I totally agree.
Yeah, even in my current role, my CTO is a big proponent of it. He's like, and I won't say his name, but simple, consistent, collaborative. And that simple is where we get really messed up, Nicholas. I'm telling you, like we've gotten so complex and products and
Yes.
services and innovation and AI and blah, blah, but we forget to do the basic stuff. And I'm like, every day I come into work, Nicholas, I'm always thinking, what do I need to make simple? What is it
Yes.
I missed? What is it? How come I have folks that have left the company but are still maybe hanging out in some of the distribution lists? Now, the threat vector there is pretty low risk, but I don't want them in the company, right? Not because, so it's like eliminating those simple attack vectors. They come back and
Yeah.
bite. And I feel like that's where a lot of onus needs to be, is simplistic, making sure security processes, compliance processes, auditing processes are really, really, really simple. And you know how it is. It's hard to make simple. I think it's hard to make simple sometimes.
Uh, I totally agree. And that leads me to my next question,
Yeah.
because you touched on the fundamentals of IAM. I noticed that training seems to be a significant part of your professional development. If I'm not mistaken, you've earned over 100 certifications or so throughout your career from various providers. And I wanted to ask you, from your perspective, what do you think makes IMI certifications stand out, and how have they contributed to your own professional growth?
Yeah, I'm super grateful for IMI to have been existing. I think I got exposed to IMI a couple of years ago, and I was like, wow, this is great. And when I looked at the certification stack, I found a lot of uniqueness in the certifications. For example, I started off with certified in data protection, CDP. And prior to that certification, Nicholas, I was running a large data protection program at a Fortune 1 company, which is a leader in that space for many years. And what that means is I was running a high value asset program, data classification, data loss prevention, governance, risk and compliance, and data loss prevention. They're all combined into, and I was leading the data protection program across the company, right? And this company is based geographically across the world. It was a fantastic experience, right? And as I walked into my new role, I was running a data protection program for a large company in healthcare. And so I kind of figured out, maybe I think rather than go after the niche CISSPs and CISMs, and they're all awesome, right? But I wanted to sort of complement my hardcore experience with something that really made sense. IMI,
Mhm.
really kind of did a nice job segregating these expertise areas like CDP, IAM, governance, CIAM, and I found CDP to be very, very good. The material was easy to understand, Nicholas. And from someone that came in with a pretty good background and running a large program, so I wasn't coming in with cold feet. But it was also something that I learned was a lot of fundamentals, right? Going back to being brilliant at the basics, being simple. I like that piece of IMI. I think the materials are pretty easy to understand. And then I started kind of saying, you know what? I love the CMSC, metaverse. Wow, so cool. I don't think anyone's got a CMSC. And I was like, let me test that out. So the curiosity killed the cat, right? And
Yeah.
CMSC started coming in, knocked CMSC out. And I was like, you know what? IAM is a great area. When I was in the Big Four tech consulting space, we had an IAM on. I focus really on data protection, but I found IAM to be like, IAM really touches everything, and so does data protection. So they both complement. So I was like, you know what, I want to kind of get a bit more deeper into IAM, right? So I understood all the fundamentals of joiners and levers and entitlements, and I came from organizations where we deployed, like for example, SailPoint. So, but I wanted to get into like, okay, now that's great, but I really would like to get to know more educationally and maybe get certified. So that's where CIAM came into play, CIG came into place from a governance perspective, and gosh, lo and behold, went into the whole identity ninja space, which I wasn't really. That was really not the outcome. My outcome was that journey, right? I'm really having fun. I'm actually really having fun learning. And over the last many years, through the pandemic, and even you'll see my profile, right? I hopped around, last 4 or 5 years. I really hopped around different companies, being very intentional, very, very intentional about the roles and the experiences. Some of them may be like short and sweet, but the experience in that space was just phenomenal. And like some of them, even though probably a year and a half or two, felt like I was at 10 years with the work that I was doing with clients. And so what has got me into my current role is all of that exposure, all of that knowledge. And I've been in industry and I've been in consulting. And so now when I get on third-party risk calls, they don't see certifications, Nicholas, really. They see credibility and they see trust.
And that's exactly what I wanted to ask you about next, because you mentioned the Identity Ninja title that you recently gained. As you know yourself, it is often difficult to influence leadership on IAM strategy. And I wanted to ask you, do you feel that earning the Identity Ninja accreditation enhances your influence or credibility when shaping IAM strategy and decision-making in general within your organization?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say it definitely shapes and influences a high quality identity access management strategy, like everything we've talked about. So if I had to put an identity in like I'm right now writing white papers, provisioning my CTO to let him know the things we need to pay attention to from a data protection, privacy, and identity management perspective when it comes to rolling out of AI agents, picking the right AI tools, and having that depth and that breadth of understanding builds credibility with my leadership team. Having that ninja certification is really an output of credibility and work and education. So it's more of insight. So going back to even if I use AI, and I use AI quite a bit for research and investigation, but AI gives you a certain set of output, and then you have to look at it and say, if this all makes sense, is it credible? And I think someone that has a ninja experience or has a couple of IMI certifications can lend that humanistic credibility to the output coming in from AI and decipher and dissect and add and modify and build a strategy that makes sense for my company, right? AI will give you a bunch of stuff. It's just boilerplate stuff, but you have to really boil it down to my company's risk appetite, my company's risk tolerance. AI can give me a whole bunch of stuff, but that may not really apply to my company. So someone with that credibility, someone with that depth, someone with that experience, someone with a ninja experience can blend more trust, can poke holes at it and say, no, this stuff doesn't make sense. That stuff doesn't make sense. This stuff makes sense, and here's why. And so I like that piece of my ninja experience. And people tend to listen to you, quite frankly. I think that's really what it is, right? People tend to believe you. In this world where AI start putting all kinds of magic and hoaxes and tools and things like that, a lot of people are like, what the hell do I believe? What do I believe? Like, is this stuff credible? Like, is this AI written? Was this written by Victor? Was this written by Nicholas? Or was this written by 5 other AI agents? No one knows, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm on a call with Nicholas, but is it an AI deepfake that's interviewing Victor? But there's,
it could be.
It could be, right? But it's crazy the world we're living in right now. I just wrote up an article about AI deepfakes. Community banking and relationships. It's nuts.
Just a couple of last questions before we finish off, Vikram.
Yeah.
Where do you see unmet training needs in IAM, especially for mid-level or emerging professionals?
I think companies, what they do, Nicholas, is they in many companies, the way information security is structured, they have IAM, they have ops, they have governance, risk, and compliance. They got guys for app and pen testing and all of those. They're segregated, right? Companies, big companies. And I think what happens is a lot of companies silo their professionals. Nothing wrong with it. But I think what happens is if I'm in ops or if I'm in GRC, I want to get into IAM. Now my manager says, no, you can't take an IAM certification because you're in GRC. It happened to me, actually. Okay. And I wanted to get more technically certified. I actually wanted to pursue the CISSP. And the manager said, no, you can't, I'm not going to give you permission for a CISSP, but you can take CGRC or C risk, and so I think we limit ourselves on the capabilities that our employees want to do. It's not like Vikram can't pick up IAM. I think we need to trust that Vikram may want to grow into IAM and he or she is looking for that. So I think managers need to really take out their myopic hat because everybody's in myopia. Quite frankly, a lot of people live in their myopic zones. And when employees come to you saying, I want to learn about IAM, give them that opportunity to go. So have a conversation. So if I was me and if you came to me and said, you know what, Vikram, I want to learn more about IAM, awesome. I'm going to go talk to my IAM manager, my peer, and say, hey, XYZ, Nicholas really wants to get more. Could you maybe let's work out a 1 month rotation or something where Nicholas can go work on a project. Maybe he can have a conversation with some of your IAM specialists and see what skills and tools and certifications they've actually done. So Nicholas can complement from him. So you win, I win, she wins, everybody wins.
I totally agree with you. I mean, training should always be a huge component in everybody's professional development. So I'm totally with you there. Any final tips you would like to share with us? Any parting words of wisdom?
Study, learn, take IMI certifications. I'm a big believer in IMI. I'm a big believer in education and learning. And I know there are many different organizations I'm a part of, right? In privacy, and keep your world open. Don't be siloed just by, I'm an ISACA guy, I'm a C-risk guy, I'm a CISM guy, and that's all I'm going to take. Or I'm a privacy guy, and all I'm going to do is privacy. I think there's nothing, this is great, and you build credibility, but I know I've built credibility from CDP, from CIAM, from CIG, from CMSC, and my horizon changed.
Thank you very much for your time today. That was a lot of food for thought. I really appreciate you being here with us. I'm sure that our viewers got a lot out of this interview. And I would like to thank you once again for all the time that you spent with us. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, Nicholas. Thank you so much for the opportunity to reach out. I really thank you for your time and great opportunity to get to know you and get to build a relationship.
You too, likewise. Absolutely. It was an honor.
Thank you.
Thank you very much again, Vikram.
Have a great day, Nicholas.
All the best.
Alrighty.
You too.